Yeah.
Happy to be here, JP.
I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you made it back. All right. What do we
Yeah.
got? We've got a green light. Here we go. We're gonna get into
Get those words!
Well, if you weren't awake already, hopefully you are now with that high energy intro to Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out of the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us on a Wednesday. My partner over there, Michael Deeb, how are you?
Oh, happy to be home, JP. I slept in my own bed last night for the first time in a week. And when the alarm went off this morning, I was in a deep sleep and some sort of weird dream. It was awesome. Felt good.
Man, well, it was good to have you here in Vegas. Now you're back to San Francisco. If you haven't figured that already, I'm in Las Vegas on the Las Vegas Strip in downtown Las Vegas. My name is John Polnik, and I'm your host, as well as my partner over there, Michael Deeb. We're going to get into some cars. What we do on this channel is we nerd out on the most interesting cars that we can find on all these auction sites like P-Car Market, Rad for Sale, I don't know. I can't even think of all the names of all of them because there are so many. Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Doug DeMiro's thing. It gets a little ridiculous. Hemmings, yeah. So we find these cars, and they may not necessarily be the best cars or the most expensive cars, but they usually are the most interesting for one reason or another. We make predictions as to what we think they will sell for when the auction ends today. Each one of these cars that we talk about are cars that will end today. These are cars that are up for auction right now, and sometimes by the end of the show, they are closing. So, we always start the show off by quickly going over the day before's predictions, and I want to go extra quickly today because I just got my butt handed to me. Michael and I, we have a competition here where we see who does better at this, and clearly, man, I got my ass is in my hat. Wow, what was I thinking yesterday?
It's always funny when one of us has a good day and the other one tries to make an excuse for why the other one was just not paying attention because.
Well, usually I'm just better at it than you, but yesterday that was not the case. What?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It seems pretty harsh when I get a full flush and you don't even get one right.
Not even one.
Since you pick after me, but man, you chose the wrong side of me each time, which was basically what it comes down to.
And I was playing it tight too. What the hell?
I know. Our star car of the day yesterday was what? Was it the Maserati? I think
it was the Ariel Atom yesterday.
Oh, the Ariel Atom is the star car.
How can you forget the Ariel Atom car of the day?
The toy, yeah. All right, it's a 2013 Ariel Atom 3 with the Honda, I think it's called the K24 or the K4. It's a 2.4 liter K24. 2.4 liter inline four from Honda that makes anywhere between 160 and 200 horsepower. I remember I couldn't figure out which exactly was in here, but somebody slapped a supercharger on that thing, and Ariel Adams weigh 1,100 pounds if you're in it. I mean, they are nothing. And by all accounts, if this thing's making around 250 horsepower, this car is fast as all get out. Our car only had 2,500 miles on it, despite being 8 years old. And you and I wondered, where does a six-figure track toy come in when it's 8 years old? There's no warranty on it, and yet it's still basically in new condition. There's not a lot of comps for Ariel Adams out there. So anyways, I said 50. You said 49. Obviously, you were on the wrong side of things. This car sold for $62,500, which I would say that has got to be all the money for one of these things. I would think you could pick up an Ariel Atom with, 5 times the miles for like 30 grand. But again, I'm guessing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. Maybe the older ones that this, because they've made, I don't know when they started making these, but they're the ones that aren't like this powerful. Boy, this one's pretty badass. For some reason, I don't know why I checked myself. I don't know if our conversation was like kind of down on it for some reason. I know these are worth money. So why I bet the under? I just can't. Sometimes I'm not smart. So anyways, what's the next car?
All right, JP, we jumped over to cars and bids. Doug DeMiro found a 2005 Maserati Ground Sport, and I think this car only had like 21,000 miles. Pearl white, the Ferrari's arrived, V8 motor. This was not a stick, unfortunately. This one had it's Ferrari's F1 gearbox. Maserati calls it a Cambria Corsa. But this is a single clutch, electronically activated transmission. They're garbage. They're just garbage. Nobody wants to drive those cars. The greatest spec for that particular gearbox was in the Enzo Ferrari and an F430 Scuderia, where the Bosch electronics turned up the shift speeds to the fastest possible. So that's the best itineration of it. But in this application...
Wait, did you just say it's much better if you get the Ferrari Enzo than this car?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. I mean, that's
what are you paying me for, man?
Don't get this car because it's just a pile of crap.
Yeah.
Go get a hypercar that's worth $2 million. You're an idiot if you're considering this $30,000 car.
I think they're $3 million now. But I think if you want that gearbox, that's the car you should get. Otherwise, if you can't afford that, get the F430 Scuderia. Otherwise, you shouldn't have gearbox. It's absolute trash. That is bidder exclusive. Nobody else will say that. Anyways, this car was really not, but it's a Maserati and they're not worth anything. The Grand Sport gives you the fancy bodywork, maybe slightly better seats, and maybe a thicker steering wheel. That's their sort of, S trim, if there's anything to that. I said 20 grand GP. You said 19. This car sold for $22,000 on Doug DeMiro's site. I was just happy to see that it transacted on DeMiro's site. I don't know, whatever. You and I, we suspected that the reserve might be 25. So I'm happy.
I'm shocked that it sold that low. I got to tell you, that's a lot of car for 22 grand. Even though that transmission is crap, it's still,
totally.
I mean, it's crap by comparison to most other, flappy paddle type things, but it's still fun. It's still a Ferrari engine. It's still Italian. It's still gorgeous. I'm shocked at that price. That is a lot of exotic for just chump change. That's less than a Honda Civic of its. I mean,
I don't know what it is about this car, JP. Like, I love Italian cars, and I don't love this generation of Maserati with a Ferrari V8. Even with a stick, it's like a tease. Like the cute girl you've been chasing around, and then you kiss her or whatever, and you're like,
have you driven one of these?
I have, and I was sorely disappointed. The seating position, you're going to crack up. You know how you and I both love the Saab 900? There's something very tall about the seat, and the seats are down below your legs. It's almost like you're sitting in a chair, not like you're in a bucket seat all reclined. And it is very Saab-like in these cars. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my memory has clouded because it's been a minute since I've driven one. And the shifter is a long throw like a truck. I mean, it's more like a Ford Mustang than it is like the Ferrari it's supposed to be based on. So I don't know, whatever.
Shout out to our friend Yuri, who I don't know if he's asking, but I'm gonna just say he's asking. Would if there were like a nearly perfect Maserati B-Turbo SI.
Right.
Or about the same miles, say 20,000 miles, do you think that car would be worth more or less than this car? Maybe that car has a stick and a quadraphonic Blaupunkt and other cool 80s stuff.
It might be. I mean, first of all, if it's a rare color, that would certainly help. If it's low miles, that would help. If it's recent service and tuning, that will all help. And I think the fact that there's this proliferation of cool cars from the 80s and 90s, something like, Rad for Sale, Radwood would, really sort of shine a spotlight on cars from that generation. Yeah, then maybe there's something there. I certainly don't see them. There's more of these in the marketplace than there are bi-turbos, and most bi-turbos are beat to hell and not been cared for by a proper mechanic. Yeah. So if you can, fulfill all that stuff, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. We shall see.
We shall see.
Stay tuned, guys. We might be teasing something there. We might be teasing. B-turbo or bi-turbo, I refuse to call. I know it's probably supposed to be called bi-turbo, but, I mean, you don't call it a pizza. It's a pizza pie.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be a B-turbo?
In Italian, the I is an E, but in America, the I is an I. So on our shores, it's a bi-turbo. But it's not both turbos, it's two turbos. That's the difference, if it makes any sense. All right, JP, the funnest car yesterday was on Bring a Trailer. Remember that 1974 Toyota Corona 2000 GT that you and I were lusting after? That motor, the Porsche Synchros, and the What else did it have on it? It had
The
like
mirrors on the fenders way out there in the front.
Rad. English wheels and German gearboxes and Japanese Mikuni carburetors and Yamaha head. This car ticks all the boxes. I don't know if I mentioned it also has a limited slip differential. I mean, this is a proper sports car in, dressed in Econobox, clothing. This is a really cool car. You will have to commit to right-hand drive because the steering wheel's on the other side of the car. Other than that, everything on this car is to love and drive. I said 20 grand thinking that the right-hand drive would hold it back. You chose the under again on the wrong side of this thing. Our car sold for $26,250. Wow. Congratulations to the seller and congratulations to the buyer and congratulations to me because I won. There you go. So that was a very interesting lot. It brought all the money, JP. Is that an extraordinary number for that car?
A
74 Toyota Corona?
I don't believe it. How did that do compared to that Alpha and the 944 that we talked about just a little later?
Yeah, well, the Alpha did well. But it embarrassed the 944. So let's jump over to the Alpha. A 1991 Alfa Romeo SZ with, I think, like 6,000 miles, 6,000 miles or something. It was ridiculously low miles on this thing. It's technically in kilometers. This car was sold new in Europe. It traveled to Japan for most of its life, and then a few years back made its way to Canada. And the Canadian consignor is offering it on a Bring a Trailer yesterday in excellent, excellent condition. They only made 1,000 of these things, and the wick is turned up. You're looking at Alfa Romeo Milano guts, but in this application, this is a really cool sports car. Ugly as all get out, but probably a great driver. So I thought that the Canadian thing would hold it back from reaching the $80,000 I suspected this car was worth. So I said 65 grand. You took the under at 59, but our car sold for 71. I'd say $15,000 more if it was on a U.S. title. And so that was all the money for a car that you still have to bring across the border. But, man, what a great deal at $71,000. Somebody got themselves a great car.
What a great deal. Okay.
All right. Anyways, 1980 Porsche 944 S2 was a great juxtaposition to this car. Same color, same interior, same size motor, same transaxle drivetrain, manual transmission, everything, but done by Porsche. So shouldn't it be worth more? No. 944s, although moving in the right direction, have not received the love they deserve. That is what the bid nerds think. I think these cars should bring, 50 grand. This car had 90,000 miles on it. I was not a huge fan that it was re-leathered and carbon dash. I did not like the 17-inch turbo twist wheels that my counterpart across the screen seemed to think enhanced the look of this particular car. But I do love that it's normally aspirated, and I do love the 944. So I said 19. And JP, you thought that the accoutrement on this car would enhance the value, but you still took the under at 18. Our car sold for $21,000, making it a full flush for me. So defend yourself on why those 17-inch turbo twist wheels are all the rage, but it only brought 21 grand.
Well, because they look better, and 21 grand is, that's objectively true. So the 944, an S2 for 21 grand, that's pretty good money. It
is pretty good. For 90,000 miles, that's pretty good money.
Yeah, I think they should be worth a little bit more than that because, look, you're seeing even like first-gen 944s are bringing in the mid-teens, so an S2 is so much more car. And, with the more modern interior and the dash and the airbag and all that stuff and the bumpers. I think it's just, these are just a great kind of bubble car in between, old school, old technology and a modern car. 944 really feels like a modern car in a lot of ways when you drive it, yet still has that classic flair. So, JP, it's something you can drive every day easily.
Do you remember 3.5 months ago when first gen 944s were 7 and 8 grand?
Mm-hmm. I was old enough to remember. Yeah, exactly.
They're bringing 2X and 2.5X. And most of them are in really ratty condition. It's hard to find a first gen that's in nice condition.
944s, all the transaxle cars were cheap for a very, very long time. So the people that had them did not take care of them, myself included. I had a bunch of them when I was a teenager and in my 20s. And Boy, I didn't take care of them. So there it is.
Yeah.
I contributed to the problem. All right. Well, there it is, guys. Those are the cars that we talked about yesterday. Those are the most interesting cars of the day on Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, and all the other auction sites. We've got some cars today. We've got 5 cars that we think are the most interesting cars of the day. And I think it's going to be hard to argue with that. It's time to get into the cars of today. Make sure you hit the subscribe, like button, notifications. The notification button is really important because a lot of times, since we do this show live, if you're a fan of Bid Nerds live, you want the Bid Nerds while it's happening. You don't want old Bid Nerds. You want new, right now Bid Nerds. Yeah. The notification, what's that?
Chachi Ramirez watches us live.
He's a live guy, but he's always watching it on Facebook. He's got to migrate over to YouTube. Watch it on YouTube, Chachi. That helps us out. Facebook, what are you doing? Does nothing for us. But we do appreciate you watching, Chachi. We love you.
Absolutely. We love you.
Getting the notification button lets you know that the show is happening right now. YouTube's a little bit of a weird platform. As soon as the show is done being live, then if you don't have a notification button and you go to our page, you won't see the video sitting there. It doesn't actually show up for like hours later. But if you have the notification button, then you'll know that Bid Nerds is there and you can watch it live or you can watch it later. You'll just know that there's a new episode, which there always is Monday through Friday at around the 9 o'clock hour. So even without the notification button, I guarantee you there's going to be a Bid Nerd show every single day of the week. So anyways, all right, so let's get to the cars today. We have some really interesting stuff. Electric cars, obviously the biggest thing in the world, but this particular electric car, I don't know, man. This one is terrifying. What do we got here?
Well, it's terrifying because, shortly after this car came about, Tesla showed up and made really cool electric cars if you're into electric cars. I have not changed my devotion from internal combustion and ruining the fossil fuels dear to this planet. But if you had to have an electric car, JP, is there an electric car sexier than a 2012 Fisker Karma in black with tinted windows and silver 22-inch wheels? That thing is savage. I love the way these cars look. They do not have the performance. Despite having like almost 900 pound-foot of torque, they're heavy as all mega shit, and they're just not fast. But this is a really neat one. Offered out of Glendale, Arizona, one of 1,600 sold in the United States, is a 2012 Fisker Karma with just 9,000 miles. Now, Henrik Fisker, JP, should be in our Bid Nerd trading cars. Kind of a neat guy. He's a designer who's worked for BMW and Aston Martin. And in case you didn't know it already, JP, you love him. This is the godfather of the BMW Z8 and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Henry Fisker is one talented mother chicken. This guy knows how to pen a very attractive car. And take a look at the Fisker Karma. Does that not, does it not reach into your maybe top 20, top 25 all-time designs? It's a really, really pretty design that he made, and the cars are super attractive. Prior to this, everybody was driving Priuses. So this was really the first electric car or sort of socially responsible vehicle for the billionaire or the multimillionaire or the executive or whatever you want to call it. These cars have an interesting history, though. They were never commercially successful. Fisker was struggling with money problems the entire time he was operational. These cars were built at the Valmet automotive plant in Finland. Can't name another car that's been produced in Finland, and I think I know cars pretty well. So there you go. That's a really oddity. And I think there's a story about when Fisker was probably on the ropes financially. There was a famous cargo ship that was coming across the Atlantic that sank and had something like 38 Fiskers on it. And that was the final straw as far as he could not financially recover from the loss of those cars that were probably prepaid by customers that had ordered them. And that was the end of them. The Fisker car is pretty neat, though. The design was, of course, way ahead of its time. It used reclaimed wood in the interior. It does have a 4-cylinder internal combustion engine to get you going and recharge all the systems while you're driving. But the range is nothing what you'd expect from a Tesla, and certainly the performance is nowhere near on par with a Tesla. A Fisker is just a cruising car. It is not a sporty electric alternative from back in just 2012. Boy, how time flies. Our car, JP, was sitting at $27,000 on 14 bids last night. It's up to now $33,000 with 3 hours to go. having moved up 5 bids overnight. It's on 19 bids. So certainly some love and some action from this, I would say, like the right color and super low miles on a 2012. I think what it comes down to is who's been maintaining the car, and do you trust that you can continue to have somebody in your neighborhood work on your Tesla to keep it on the road, because there are no more dealers. These guys are long gone. It really is kind of a gamble. What do you think, JP? Yay or nay on the Fisker Karma?
Well, for sure. I mean, I absolutely have to agree that it's one of the best looking cars of all time. Certainly a top 10 car. It is so cool looking and basically iconic. I don't understand why this was ever classified as an electric car. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's a hybrid. Right. This is like a Prius or a Civic, a Civic hybrid or any of the other hybrid. It's got a gas. So why this is in the same category? That just boggles my mind. If it was possible to swap the drivetrain out of this thing and put a LS in it or something like that.
Bob Lutz was putting a group of like executives together. They were going to try and buy the tooling from this and put LSs in there. Lutz was going to do it. And if anybody could have pulled it off, it would have been him. But somebody else bought it, and they're still putting these things on the road with more contemporary guts. And I've heard people trying to do Tesla swaps, drivetrain and brains over to these. But you're talking about throwing ridiculous money to have what it becomes now a novelty. But I agree with you. If it was easy to do an LS swap, oh man, you'd be sitting pretty.
Our friend Daniel over at German Motors here in Las Vegas, they own a shop.
What's up, Daniel?
Hey, Daniel. He talked about one of these someone came in and they had a problem with the car and they were asking to repair it and the person couldn't find any place to repair it. And, Daniel, those guys can fix just about anything over there, but he had to turn the guy away. I'm sorry. I don't know how to write code. I don't know, I mean, this thing is just so far. I mean, if this car stops working for some reason, luck,
your Porsche,
I hope it's in a spot where this is a great lawn ornament. Put it out in front of your, mansion or something like that, and leave it there forever. Put a planter on it or something. But have you driven one of these? I've never been in one of these moving.
So our friend Denny in Las Vegas has 2 of them. So he's got a burgundy one with 500 miles, and then he's got a blue one he drove, and he's got like 24,000 miles. There's a Fisker technician who lives in LA that comes to Vegas to work on Fisker clients' cars in Vegas.
Wow.
And he does it at Denny's home on Denny's lift. So Denny kind of gets his cars worked on, pretty much for free, so that guy can use his lift and whatever equipment is in Denny's place and work on these other customers' cars for money. So I have driven Denny's car around the block, and it's interesting. It's a very interesting drive. It's a big car. The steering is super direct. It's very luxurious. It's very sporty. It's very exotic. I mean, it's really, it's almost Lamborghini-like. It's really wild to be in that car. But they're not, again, they're just not fast. They're heavy and they're they have power, but the weight hides it.
Yeah.
Neat car, but I am not buying one.
Where's it going to land, this one? For the person who is going to buy one, what are they going to pay today? What are we doing?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that question. How do I know? What do I mean, Miss Chloe over here?
Where's it at right now?
It's at 33. So it got it got $6,000 overnight, JP. I think the black and the low miles, and it's in Arizona. The pictures are sexy. I don't know that they're great detail photos, but they certainly look good. And if you're selling the dream, man, that's the one to have. How about the daft our driver from your consumer car with his leather jacket and black helmet getting out of that car in the desert?
Right.
That'd be a good video, right? So I'm all that's to say I'm all in on this Fisker, JP. I think it's going to bring $46,000. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's really low miles. I'm going to go the over. I'll go 50. I mean, does it break 50? I don't know. We'll see. But
I don't know.
It's just, I'm not buying one, but dang, it sure would be neat to have one in the collection, I suppose. But
that black one with the tinted windows is the prettiest one I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
I'm afraid of black cars, but that car's hot. That's a hot car.
And in Arizona, it'll be exactly that, but at least it has a gas-powered motor, so it'll keep your AC going. Yeah,
your solar panels are working around the clock, JP.
Yeah.
All right, JP, let's go over. Lane and Bradley have come up with a car. This thing is awesome. Go to Rad for sale, my friend. 1987 Chrysler Conquest TSI. I didn't take my vitamins this morning.
Conquest TSI. Say that quickly.
Conquest TSI. Okay, JP.
Okay, we just went racist.
Yeah, we did. This thing is kind of a resto mod. Somebody upgraded the motor. The 2.4 liter turbo now has been rebuilt. And while I'm not going to go through all the internals, just take a look at the images. This thing is boss. They turned up the wick too. It's got an aftermarket turbo on top of the motor rebuild that is churning out 14 PSI, which is way over what your run-of-the-mill turbocharged motor is making in your garage at home. This little 1987 Conquest TSI is making 340 horsepower and 276 pound-foot of torque. That will churn some butter, my friend. That is awesome. That car is fast. It's rear-wheel drive. It's got a 5-speed manual that was sourced out of a Mazda RX-7. Let me see if I can jump over here real quick.
What?
Yeah. Mazda RX-7 Turbo 2 S5
Okay.
5-speed manual transmission.
Right.
Yeah. And then what else can I tell you?
So while you're looking that up, I mean, technically this is a Mitsubishi Starion. The Conquest TSI was technically the Chrysler version of the identical car sold in at the showroom across the street. My first car was a Dodge Colt that was actually a Mitsubishi. So this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, this Mitsubishi Chrysler marriage churned out a couple of different cars, and this is one of them. I love JP. Can we just agree that anything with box cut fenders, if you get the stance and the wheel and tire package right, that car looks immediately good. Remember, we looked at that. What was that little Geo thing that had the off-road kit?
The tracker,
yeah, and it had box cut fenders, and the guy put like a 2-inch lift, and suddenly that car looked cool. This thing looks great with the box cut fenders, and man, this resto mod has so much cool stuff. Coilover suspension. It's got Nissan 240 SX steering rack. It's got Nissan 300ZX 4-piston brake calipers. It's got the 9-inch wide sport handling package, alloy wheels, and a limited slip differential to finish it all off. And there's a long list of what is in this build on the listing on Rad for Sale. If you're interested or just an enthusiast, go to the site, go to the listing, and click the hyperlink and check out this car. Is amazing. The aftermarket turbo is a whole set HX35 turbo. And when you're talking a car that probably made less than 200 horsepower, now making over 340, there is some boost going on here. And yet this car, JP, is sitting at just $8,500 on only 4 bids, which is more a reflection of how new the Rad for Sale website is than the true value of this particularly cool car that has been built. You and I would love to drive this car. I even think I like this sort of olive kind of military green flat paint job. I'm not in love with it, but it is cool because it's different. It doesn't look like a color that this car ever came in. It's a heritage color for, I think, Mitsubishi, which is really neat. So definitely tastefully done. A lot of attention to detail here. And I am saying this is probably one of the fastest, most shocking sleepers you'd ever see. You roll up next to this guy in a 944 turbo and think you're going to take him, you're in for a rude awakening. This car will spank you.
Where do you start with this car? I love this.
Right?
Yeah, it's not for me. I mean, I appreciate Rad for Sale having this thing available, but it's just too far gone. I'd be, I'm not a purist by any means when it comes to any car, but this car is just way too far gone from what it was originally. It's got to be a fun car, and it would be fun to own, but it's not something that I would. I mean, it's at $8,500 already.
Yeah, yep. 4 bids.
This is like a $3,500 car, and it's already twice as much. And will it bring some more? Probably, just because it's hipster value. I would not consider this Radwood Gold because this is not a car that you would ever have seen like this in the 80s or 90s. Nobody would ever have done this stuff. Yeah. Right. It's kind of like, my 993 is a 95. And I don't think it deserves to be at Radwood because it's not done in any kind of rad style. It's definitely more of a contemporary, stuff. So yeah, this car's neat. Not worth it, but somebody's going to have some fun with it. I can guarantee you that. I just don't think it's well executed. And you gotta Well, that is one heck of a choice to take your photos in a graveyard. I've never seen that done before. I don't know if you noticed that, but
we looked at a place. We looked at some photos of some car the other day, JP, and you asked out loud. You're like, did he shoot this in front of a graveyard? He had not, but it looked like it. But this is
this one. This is there's the headstones, kids. The guy went to the graveyard and said, "Yeah, this is where good old Wilson there, who's been buried for who knows how long." That is a creative decision there. I could see maybe doing that if you were doing some kind of like, I mean, if the lighting was right and you had, I don't know, you're doing like a 80s thriller thing or something. But why? What? Why are these pictures in here at all? They're not well done.
No, they're not.
There's one really good photo of the car, and that's like the main photo for the ad. Obviously, someone snapped it for this guy, and the rest of the photos are garbage. They're shot in the wrong time of day. The lighting is bad. It really makes the flat paint look awful. You know, you have to look really carefully. It's like, is this thing vinyl wrapped or is that actual paint? And you can just see all the plastic bits have been warped, and you know they're age. You know, they just that plastic stuff from the 80s just doesn't hold up very well. That cement trim. All right, where's it going to land?
I don't think the paint's executed very well. JP, unlike you, I am all in on this. I love this build because it's so evocative of all these JDM parts, right? It just doesn't have aftermarket wheels. It doesn't have aftermarket spoilers and things like that. And so I appreciate it because it's evocative of what these cars could have been in period. And so for that reason, the fact that he sourced all these, Japanese manufacturers' best parts to make a great driving car, I like what he did here. And I can see that he spent a lot of money on the work. Unfortunately, the paint is not great. I don't think the paint job was very good, but whatever. My eyes aren't that great, so maybe I'm wrong. I think there's a tremendous value here for the money, and for that reason, I think this car will sell or at least get to $11,000. He may have so much tied up in it, he has a higher reserve. I don't know for sure. So we'll see what happens here. The other thing is we're betting, it's not that we don't love Rad for Sale, but you kind of have to bet against it because it's still so new. We expected, I think, maybe a little more of a groundswell for them to get off the ground because they have such a big reach. But we have yet to see that, take care of consigners day in and day out. So, for that moment, for the moment right now, 8,500 seems like a bargain for this car. Maybe I'm wrong. I know
they did extend this auction by a day or two because they were having some technical issues. So they're still ironing out the bugs.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's a rock and a hard place because for this platform to really start doing what it needs to do, they need cars. They're doing a car a day or every other day at this point. So when it's hard to say, all right, I want to go back and see what they got. Well, I know what they got because they've got 6 cars, and that's kind of what they have to do because they got to get all the bugs ironed out before they start, piling in the volume. So, I'm sure they'll figure it out, and we've got our wishes for them because they're our friends over there. But let's see some more cars, guys. I'm dying to see what you guys got in the queue, and frankly, we have a car that maybe might wind up on here. So I don't know, where's this one going to land?
All right, JP. So it's at 8,500. 4 bids, 4 hours to go. I say $11,000. But I'm much confident that it sells there because I think he's got a lot of money tied up in it. He may be holding out for a higher reserve. I agree with you. These are $3,500 cars, but this build is to me is pretty impressive.
Yeah, if his reserve is that high, that's ludicrous. But are we sure this isn't a vinyl wrap? Look at the top of this wing.
I'm not sure of anything.
Yeah, I suspect this might be vinyl, but I don't know. I'm not gonna. I say it doesn't break 10. I'm gonna go 99.99. And I don't know if it sells there. That's kind of cool. We didn't see those pictures till later. All right, so what's the next car?
All right, JP, let's jump over to Bring a Trailer. We have a no reserve 1989 Mercedes-Benz 190E with a 2.6 liter inline 6 and a 5-speed manual transmission. These are interesting. W201 cars were meant for Mercedes to make a smaller platform at a less expensive price to begin to engage younger buyers into Mercedes-Benz fold. Get them a car that they could drive while they're a junior executive still paying off student loans, or when they got their first apartment in the big city, and then get them into the Mercedes fold, and then keep them there with brand loyalty and high service and great quality cars. And I love the W201s. The 190E with the Cosworth head is one of my favorite cars. The platforms are fantastic. The 190 feels like the entire car was chiseled from a single block of steel. They are rigid, they are firm, they are very secure. You feel very safe in these cars. And despite a car like this, which is not a sports car and probably has very squishy suspension, the whole unit feels like it's cohesive, and they're probably surprisingly fun to drive. Now, the 5-speed manual in this car is not like the 5-speed manual in the Cosworth. That's a ZF with a dogleg first. This is just a conventional 5-speed with a standard, shift pattern. Our car is offered out of Ellicott City, Maryland. It has 170,000 miles on the odometer. The 2.6-liter inline-six is probably a pretty anemic motor for this car. The 5-speed will help it, but it's not a sporty vehicle. I don't know what else to say about this car. They're neat, but they're for a real cult following, JP. They don't hold their value very well, and yet they hold up fantastically well. You could probably drive this car up to 400,000 miles without having to do major service. Mercedes, this was the end of an era for Mercedes when they built really, really good cars. They were manufactured to a really high standard, even the EconoBox version, which is what this represents. So a no reserve auction is kind of tantalizing. It's got about 2 hours to go, and it's sitting at $5,100 with 170,000 miles. But the condition of this car looks really good. The interior looks extremely clean. And the outside, you could put those flush mount headlights and really update the look on this car, and maybe even lower it, and you'd have a bargain little sporty looking car. But it's not fast. It's not a rocket ship by any stretch. So what do you think, JP? Yay or nay on the standard 190 with a 6-cylinder?
I mean, you're comparing it to a Cosworth, which again is like comparing that little Maserati Grand Sport to Ferrari Enzo. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You're right about not holding their value traditionally, but they sure seem to be skyrocketing. This has been an underappreciated car for a very, very long time. These have been worth a couple of $1,000s forever, and I've always thought they were one of the best bargains in just German car. And usually they're an automatic. So if you just wanted a daily driver that looked nice, that was actually a little, because most of the Mercedes of this era, they're kind of big, so it's like, I don't know if I want to drive something that big. But this car just fits everywhere. The fuel economy is great. They're smooth as butter. They just drive so nice. No, it's not necessarily a sports car. You could make it one if you wanted to mod the suspension and do all that stuff, but that's not what it's for. It's for just getting in and driving and being unbelievably comfortable for a couple $1,000 car. I haven't seen one this clean in years. I mean, this is absolutely remarkable. And then to throw a 5-speed in there, that's going to actually make it kind of fun. The 2.6 liter isn't. I mean, it's got some power. Again, it doesn't have power, but it's a 6-cylinder. This car looks like it should have like a 1.8 or 2 liter. This is the size of a Jetta of its same year. They're not big cars, but yet it has a 6-cylinder. It actually has quite a bit of power for a car its size. I would love to have this car as a daily driver.
Yeah, 158 horsepower, 162 pound-foot of torque. And it's a no-reserve auction, JP. It was at $3,900 yesterday, and it's at $5,100 today. Jeff Harley, friend of the Bid Nerds, that was one of his first cars in college or out of college. He had a Mercedes 190 and drove it for a couple of years. And then we met, and he found out I was a huge fan of the 16-valve. And he talked about how much he loved his 190. He goes, man, that was a great car, which is really funny because he's big on BMWs and Hondas, which is really funny. So
and you could surprised. Be a big person and fit in this thing, unlike a lot of cars its size. It's unbelievable how much room is inside this thing. Where is it going to land? What do you think?
I said 6,000 last night, but this car is definitely getting some love, and it's at $5,100 with 2 hours to go, and it's a no reserve auction. I'm gonna bump my bid up a little bit, JP. I can't decide if I should go 6,500 or 7,000. I'll go 6,500 and say that it sells because it's a no reserve. How's that for a prediction?
I'm gonna go 75. I just
Oh,
really like this
wow.
car. I think it
Look
could
at
see
you.
some sky. White with a manual. I mean, a manual.
Yeah.
If that's the one thing. Manuals always bring
Super
more money,
clean.
and a clean
Yeah.
one. I mean, this is talk about something that's tough to find. This is definitely it. I don't know how many people are looking, but this is definitely not a car that you're going to find easily if this is something you want. How many bids are there so far on this thing?
Let's read it to you, JP. It is up to 16 bids right now.
Yeah, so that's some action, man. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
this
yeah.
car. All right. That's a really cool car, and if somebody can get that for under $10,000, that's just such a cool,
That is a lot of
great
car
car
for
to
under 10
own.
grand.
Yeah,
It
and a
is.
car that
That's-
you'll never have to. That could be the last car you own, even if you were in your 20s. You could buy that
Yep.
car and drive it till you're dead. It could be an heirloom.
Oh my God, that's really funny. It'd be
Yeah.
a great car to put your kid in if you had to go to high school, because he's got a Mercedes, he's got a
Mm-hmm.
stick, and yet he's not in a sports car, and he'll learn how to drive a manual, which I think is important for the next generation.
Dying art for sure. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, JP, let's jump over to cars and bids right now. Doug DeMuro has offered a car that I think you and I would both agree. It's like, why?
Yep.
Why? It's a 1994 Saturn SL2 with just 24,000 miles, offered out of Mountain View, California, which is here in the Bay Area. That's down, JP, that's kind of like south and east of San Jose. Not too far from here. Nice climate, nice people down there in Mountain View. 24,000 miles. This is a 1.9 liter inline four. It's a front wheel drive. It's an automatic 4-speed. I remember when Saturn came out, their big marketing thing, and they had TV commercials to enforce this, was the no haggle thing. In other words, the salesperson was really just a delivery specialist. You came in and you selected a car, and whatever the price of the car was, they were doing non-negotiation transactions. And so General Motors, and I had to ask you to confirm this because I completely forgot before the show. I had to confirm. I was like, JP, Saturn's made by GM, right? You were like, yeah. And you were like, who cares? And I was like, right, who cares? But anyway, GM created this sort of subsidiary to produce these economy cars I would say, JP, correct me if I'm wrong, in the shadow or in the light of how well the Japanese cars were doing, selling cars to American consumers that needed reliable, economical transportation to commute in. GM created a subsidiary called Saturn with a non-negotiating, window sticker and sort of an economy front. And that's what I believe the reason why these cars were created. I guess commercially they worked for a little while. It's hard to tell with GM what works and what doesn't because they punch out so many freaking units. These cars were everywhere back in the early 90s, and I hated being stuck behind them in traffic because they were behind people who didn't care about driving, and they're just garbage. I cannot turd on this car enough. I absolutely hate that it's on here. I think DeMuro is diluting whatever brand he's got left by having this on here. Who cares if it's got 2,400 miles? This car isn't worth anything. It's a no reserve auction, so it's going to sell. And I imagine that's why DeMuro said yes to it, because the consignor agreed to just let it run and bring what it brings. But I don't see there ever being a day when this car is worth 10 grand again, and I think it sold for 14 when it was new. So there you go. It's all yours.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the whole no haggle sales model. That was such a big deal in the 80s. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
And they also had they had the big marketing thing where they were like rolling shopping carts into it because their big claim to fame was like all the parts were composite and plastic and stuff. So they didn't dent. Okay, yeah, they didn't dent, but they fell apart. Right. I mean, we always lament when we see like a E30 M3 with 23,000 miles on it and we're like, why didn't they drive it, or an old 911 or something? Who does this to a car? Well, like this car only has 23,000 miles. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Nobody wants to drive this. Who would want to be in this car? It's such a pile of crap. You're absolutely right.
This lot screams to me that some kid inherited his grandmother's car to commute to school. He drove it once and was like, no, I'll just sell it and then I'll use that money as a down payment on something I want to drive. And that's why it's on an enthusiast site, but it's grandma's old car that never got driven. I mean, it's just
you'd be better to spend this money on Fire Festival 2. I mean, this is just like absolute worthless dumping your money in a way. And it doesn't even look like it's that clean. It's got low miles, but I think you're right about the grandma situation. Grandma was driving this around, just kind of beat it up. It just sat for a long time. Just awful car. But I will say this, for their time, They were very design forward. I had a friend whose parents, his father was trying to decide between. They had the two-door. I think it was the SL something or whatever version of this. Yeah, who cares?
It was coupe, sedan, and wagon, and then SL, and SL2 were probably different trim levels. Again, because you weren't ordering these cars with options, you just ordered that one or that one, and then it was the price, and then you bought it and they delivered it, and that was the end of it. I mean, it was
he was trying to decide between that and the GTI of the same year. I think it was like a 93 or whatever, and he chose the Saturn because the design is so futuristic. And it's like, okay, looking back, which one should you have gotten? Of course, the 93 GTI was not a good looking car, but certainly better than this pile of crap, and would be worth something to this day if it were still in existence. This thing is landfill fodder. But this is probably the cheapest way you can roll into Radwood and maybe have a fun spot, and people would. This is kitschy. The only way to own this car is ironically. Where's it going to land? Where do you think it's going to?
I don't know.
Is anybody going to buy this?
Somebody's buying it. JP, wrap your head around this. With 2.5 hours to go, on Doug DeMuro's website, a no reserve 94 Saturn has 20 bids. There's 20 times somebody said they would buy this car, which is crazy.
And how high is it at right now?
$3,400, which I think is what my bid was. I said, what did I say? I said $3,500. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to go $3,700. Oh, Lord, I can't believe I'm changing my bid, but this is only to beat you. It's not because I believe in this car. I'm just trying to win our little contest here.
When was the last time there was a bid? Was it all yesterday or last night, or have there been any bids today?
Okay, so last night, JP, it was at $2,475 on 16 bids. So it got 4 bids overnight that brought another $1,025 or $925.
Yeah, I mean, you're a stymie check away from buying yourself a brand new Saturn. You said
God.
What? 37 is where you're at?
3,700,
and it's at 30 what now?
34.
Oh my gosh! Will it go $300 or $400? Fine, I'll go 38. I'll bet the over. There are clearly idiots that want this thing for Radwood admission for under $4,000.
Yeah, he could do. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. What an anemic car. JP,
what a great car to blow up when you're done, though. Like, you could buy this and literally take it in the desert and blow it up. Let's get Robbie to buy it.
The biders can blow it up. We'll stick Mikey in it with a couple of 400-pound hookers and then blow it up.
Good plan.
All right.
He approves, I'm sure. All right.
He does.
Let's move on.
All right, JP, we definitely saved dessert for last. Let's go to P-Car Market, where they've got a 1984 911 Carrera Targa. So JP, the question, as I introduce this car, the question we bounce back and forth is, do modifications enhance the value of a car? And it's a tricky situation. A lot of times mods will hurt the value of a car. Sometimes mods will enhance the value of a car. And you and I disagree on which ones do and which ones don't all the time, which is great. It's compelling, journalism, if you call this journalism, which would be a stretch. But here's a really nice car, an 84 911 Targa offered out of Frederick County, Maryland, JP, with just 61,000 original miles. Now, they do confess or disclose, depending on how you look at it, that a deer hit this car and that there has been some body and paint work done to the side, but that it was very mild. It wasn't like a car accident. So that shouldn't really hurt the value. So by all accounts, this is a pretty original, pretty low mile first year of the 3.2 Carrera with a 915 gearbox. Targas are on the move, and Guards red and black is kind of a staple color for Porsche in this era. So this should be a pretty attractive car. However, there are some modifications, and the question begs, does that push you off or does that draw you in? It's got LED headlights that you were just on there a minute ago. These are not correct Fuchs wheels for the car. These are the aftermarket Fuchs that have like a polished lip and a weirdly painted center. They're not anodized black like the Fuchs wheels should be. So I'm not feeling those rims. I'm not feeling those headlights. I do love the GTS seats. They actually kind of harken back to the Recaros that were optional in the 73 2.S Carrera. So that is very derivative design of the Recaros from the early 70s. But they're out of place in an 84 Carrera. I think those seats would look great in the last of the F-bodies, a long wheelbase car. I love the Momo Prototipo. Absolutely correct. That would, to me, enhance the value. Those seats, JP, go for like $3,000 for a pair of them. And probably if those are leather and houndstooth, they might have been closer to $4,000. So a pretty penny was spent there. And he's got an aftermarket Blaupunk stereo that has Bluetooth. So it looks like it's period correct, but it's a contemporary Blaupunk stereo, which is really neat. I think that's a worthy upgrade. So do all of these upgrades make this car worth more than if it was just bone stock with a little bit of paintwork and 60,000 miles? My answer is going to be no. But I wonder if you say that no, you would pay a premium because this guy spent, I don't know, let's say $10,000 in mods, and you could pick up those mods for just a $5,000 premium over what this car should bring, which is a decent argument. But I don't know. The Porsche market's kind of finicky. Our car is also troubled by the fact or hindered, what would be the Achilles of this lot, is that it's on P-car market. So we don't know if that's going to help bring market value or if that might hold it back because it's in the wrong part of New Jersey. With 2 hours to go, JP, our car's sitting at $34,000, and I would say this should be a $65,000 car. Am I wrong? Where are you at on all the mods that enhance this, or do they put it off?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 60,000 if it were basic. Yeah, I mean, with 60,000 miles, that's
right?
Pretty darn low
Targa?
miles. These the mods don't bother me, but I certainly don't think that they're going to bring a premium by any stretch of the imagination. I'm with you on the seats. The seats are absolutely beautiful, but they belong. I mean, you could get away with those in a G-body narrow mid-year car. I think that would make sense. If you maybe if you made this car look a little older by changing the loop to a brushed aluminum instead of the black, but with the black loop,
that's a hot take.
Right, with the black loop, this car is decidedly 80s and needs to stay that way, especially with the black trim and stuff like that. So,
fantastic take, JP. That was really well said.
Every now and then I get something right.
Yeah,
if you were to own this car, if you could get this car for a decent value, if it's not overpriced, pull those seats, sell the seats for a few $1,000. You could easily get a set of contemporary seats for $1,000, $1,500. So pocket a couple extra bucks that helps you on the net on this thing. I love those 911 kind of Singer-esque headlights. They're not for everybody, but I think they look great, especially on an 80s car.
Doesn't Ronnie have those on his black turbo?
He does, and they look fantastic.
Yeah.
And are they actual 911? That's the name of the company, spelled NINE.
I want to say, JP, you see how these look white on the front of the car right there? Yeah. I think Rami's, I'm going from memory, I think Rami's are tinted black. Like
you can get them a couple different ways. Yeah,
I think his are smoked. I don't know what brand they are, but the major difference is that Rami's on a black car. His lenses are smoked, and they look really sinister. He's got black wheels. Rami's car looks like Darth Vader's, wet dream.
Are these 17-inch aftermarket Fuchs or those 16s?
Oh, that's a good take. I don't know. No, they're 16s, but they're 16s, Max Light. Yeah, these are sold by that aftermarket company. What is it? Not Sierra Madre, but the other one. I don't know. Who does Ben work for?
Sierra Madre.
Yeah, the other guy. It's the other one that does it. Anyway, they bring them in. Maybe Sierra Madre has them, but somebody sells these. When they come in as the standard finish, that lip is very porous. It doesn't look like the Fuchs wheel. So, if you really look at it, you can tell they're aftermarkets. This guy polished his, which hides it probably a little bit better. But I don't like the polished lip. Even though it's decidedly 80s, I don't like that look. Anyway, whatever. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very subtle thing and very easy to correct. I think pull the seats, put the contemporary seats in there, and with the Prototipo is not only beautiful, but it's also functional. It feels great when you're driving the car. Really gives a great touch point in the car. This is just an absolutely
really
clean. And I think the biggest problem is the accident. Those looks like those are aftermarket aluminum bezels on the gauges, which don't bother me. Especially,
bother me. I would change them out.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got the steering wheel with the white stitching. I think it kind of brings it together, but whatever.
Okay, but that Prototipo comes with a brushed aluminum, 3-spoke. I would do that if you're going to do a metal face on the gauges. You know what I mean? It's got to be cohesive. And to me, this is just like, Coca Mats. Everybody loves Coca Mats. I'm going to put those in there. Oh, GTS seats. Those are $4,000. I'm going to put those in there. This to me looks like a rich kid modded his car.
Yeah, just put a bunch of stuff that he had.
It's not tastefully done. I take issue with how he did it. I think there's a better way to do it. I would pull those seats, but I wouldn't sell them, JP. The next time you and I find an abandoned 72S lying in the desert somewhere, we will not hesitate, and those seats are going to look great in it.
Yeah, but that car had Recaros, and it would have made sense to get those redone.
Absolutely, it would.
All right. It would have cost more than this entire car. All right, so how much? Where's this going to land? I think you're being very, very, very nitpicky on this. I think the biggest issue really is the accident in its history, and I think because it's in New Jersey, that helps P-Car Market. P-Car Market tends to favor
Maryland,
the cars,
those East Coast cars.
East Coast cars, yeah.
All right, JP, it was at $26,000 last night, and it's gotten some love this morning. It's at 34. So that's an $8,000 jump. I think this car is worth $49,000. That's what I wrote last night. I don't think Car Market is going to get it. So from $34,000, I'm going to say this thing goes to, oh man, I'm going to shoot myself for this. $41,000. Yeah, that feels right. I don't know. I don't believe in Car Market anymore. I don't know. I've lost hope for them. They're all over the place. It's too inconsistent for me. So I'm not confident. This car should bring $49,000 on PAT. It's going to bring 41 on Car Market. Yeah, I said it. You guys can't get the money. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Whatever. We'll see.
I mean, Car Market loves to pat themselves on the back when they get one right, but they just kind of gloss over the ones that they completely miss. They'll sit there and cherry pick their wins, which they get. And sometimes you're like, what in the world? How did they get that money for this car? Yeah. But then you look at the rest of them, you're like, oh, yeah, swing, miss, swing, miss, swing, miss. How many cars wind up in deal tank on top of that? It's kind of embarrassing. So, it's hard to bet higher than where you're at there because I think, this car is definitely worth it. I mean, our friends at Godden Classic have an 87 Targa, and granted, that's a G50 car with more miles, and I believe they're asking 60 for that one. So which is
JP, I said when we were at Cars and Cafe, I was vlogging with you for a second, and I said that they had sold that car before, and it turns out I was wrong. They did have another G50 Guards Red Black Targa that Mike Anderson, I think, sourced and brought in, and then they ultimately sold. And then I found a 915 gearbox Guards Red and Black Targa that we sold. So this is their third consecutive Guards Red Black Targa, this time again with the G50. So that is absolutely their Huckleberry at Godden Classic. So good luck to those guys. What's up, Jay Ronsetti? We know you're watching.
Yeah, I think for sure that car will sell. I think, again, this car is worth more than did I give a number?
No, I said 41. You said that Godden has one. They're trying to get 65 with the
I'm going to say someone's going to get a bargain at 40. I think it just
40. You're going to take the under. All right.
Yeah, I'll take the under. I mean, and I hope it gets more, but like just a total lack of confidence in P-Car.
I think this is a $50,000 car with the modifications. If it didn't have the paintwork and it was all stock, I stand on this car would be a $65,000 car. It's low miles and super clean. And they are, man, Targas are hot. I think that's a great car. And at 41 on P-Car Market, a savvy buyer will pick this car up, fix what he wants to fix on it, and really have himself a deal. Good luck.
Brushed aluminum on that loop, dude, or lady, cool. Or whoever winds up buying it. How hot would a chick look rolling this thing with a brushed aluminum loop in those seats? Woo! Love it. All right, guys. That is Bid Nerds for a Wednesday. Thanks, guys, for hanging out and nerding out on the most interesting cars of the day and all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. We do this Monday through Friday. We make predictions, we nerd out, we talk about these cars. Don't listen to us. One thing we say over and over and over is we don't know what we're talking about. We don't do any research. We are not experts. We're just a couple of yahoos. Well, we're nerds. We just nerd out. We just nerds. That's it. So nerd out with us. You sit there and you watch Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer every day. You've got it in the background. You're watching different cars. Tell us what cars you think we should be talking about, because we love to take submissions from our listeners and watchers and nerd out about the cars that you guys like too. So come back tomorrow. We'll be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Probably might be from the road. Might be on the road tomorrow. We're not entirely sure.
That'll be funny.
Yeah, we'll see if that's happening. Michael Deeb, anything you want to say before we close it out?
Yeah, tune in tomorrow and see how much I stomped on JP again today after a full flush. Does JP have a comeback? After watching you do your bids today, JP, I think it's going to be another crushing.
5 Yahtzees in a row.
No way.
Will not be had. Yeah, I'm not confident in any of my bids today. But sure is a good time. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow.
Get those words!